What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Buckeye Remix. This is Jeff Needs Sports. I'm Jeff. This week, we don't have a game to remix, so to speak, but it's playoff week. It's kind of got a big game this week. We got the Sugar Bowl between the Clemson Tigers and the Ohio State Buckeyes coming up. Friday, January 1st. So, if anybody's new to the show, once again, I appreciate you giving me a chance and checking us out. Returning listeners, returning viewers, once again, I love you all and I really, really appreciate the support. So, we're going to get through this together, guys. I don't think any realistic Buckeye fan thinks that we're going to walk away with a victory this week, as we do in normal weeks. We're kind of spoiled as Buckeye fans, and I take that. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to be spoiled. But, this week we've got the Clemson Tigers. We know what the last few games have been like versus Clemson, especially last year, the thriller that it didn't go our way. A lot of bad memories from that, but we're going to move on. We're going to talk about this week, and we're gonna figure out a way to get this done. So first of all, huge shout out to my wife. She got me an adult studio chair for the shows. It's a game changer. We're talking lumbar support, the whole 9 yards. So, shout out to my lovely wife for doing that for me. These shows may turn into 6-7 hour broadcasts just because of that. Got some new lighting up, trying to work on some things. So things are kind of coming around. 2020 looks like it's going to be a good time. So, and then, another thing, we just got through I hope everybody had a good holiday weekend, good Christmas if, you celebrated or just had a good time with your family or whatever, and everybody's doing well out there. That's most importantly. So on to the game. So, here's what we're going to do here's what I did. You guys can all go look at the numbers and everything for yourself. So I dug into some of them. What I'm going to do is I kind of went through like categories that I feel are the most important for any game, any football game played. And then I kind of rated the teams on those categories. And then we'll talk a little bit about how I came up with my ratings. First of all, anybody watching, you're not going to love it. Anybody listening, you're probably not going to love it. But, I gotta be honest. I owe you guys that much. It doesn't mean that I'm saying Ohio State can't win this game. I'm just simply saying that, if you look at the teams top to bottom, Ohio State is at a disadvantage, but we all know that, everybody, I just watched, the Sugar Bowl and the national championship from 2015. We know anything can happen. We can change anybody's mind. So that's the most important thing, is to be optimistic. So I'll give you my overlay here, and we'll get to my ratings. Sorry. I didn't have to do college football rankings this week. You guys got to know what those are, right? We can get into that a little bit real quick. I said last week on the show, I did my show before the college football rankings came out. I really believe that Notre Dame didn't have a chance to get in. I told you all the reasons why. I didn't see how you could get thumped by a playoff team that is going to be in the 10 days before the playoffs, 13 days before the playoffs, and then get in. I didn't see the common sense in that. I did come around on that a little because, even though we just saw Notre Dame get beat by a playoff team, if that would have happened in the first week of the year, we would have forgiven it. So I think I'm a little more lenient on that it was a little more fair. And then, there was a lot of arguments that Texas A&M wasn't as good as I thought. And then once you got past Texas A&M, obviously, even though I think Florida is better than all the teams, I think Florida's the third best team in the country. I totally understand you can't put a 3-loss team in over a Notre Dame. So I did come around on the logic of it, even though I still didn't think that Notre Dame deserved in because of how recently they lost to Clemson. But that's, I did come around on the logic of it. I had a lot of conversations on Twitter about it this week, a lot of conversations on Facebook, and I'm a reasonable guy, so it is what it is. So Notre Dame's in, good for you. Good luck versus Bama. You'll need it. Like anybody does that plays Bama. All right, let's get on these ratings here. Ohio State, Clemson. Let's look at these matchups. Now it's gonna be a little shock here, but we got to pull the Band-Aid off. This is what I come up with. Okay. So I'll read these off for, we got a lot of people that just listen, don't get a chance to watch the show, which I recommend watching the show. Go check out my Facebook page, YouTube. Just see what it's all about. A little feedback. It's awesome. If you're listening, like, share, and review as usual. So here we go. So what I did for the listeners, I got team advantages. So these are the categories that I came up with that I thought were really important. Rather than like specific players and position groups, I kind of broke it down into, you know, kind of task on the field. So you got quarterback, obviously, most important position in football. Then I got like receiving, which essentially just receiving core, includes running backs, tight ends, everybody. I got a rushing attack. I kind of just put it under like a rushing attack because, you know, quarterbacks are involved in that too. So you can't just put running backs. And then that filters that includes the offensive line too. So then I've got passing defense, which is just generally that includes everybody. So then, you know, that way you're factoring in linebackers. You're kind of factoring in. You're also factoring in D line. You know, any problems that they make, things like that. Secondary, of course. And then I got run defense. Same thing. Tackling. You know, pressure at the line. You know, penetration by the defensive line. Linebackers. You know, maintaining their job. You know, things like that. Yeah, then I've just got kind of D line because I am a person that believes D line is probably I don't know if it's the most important position group in football, but it determines a game. We see it year after year after year after year. And so I put D line as another group. And then I put coaching in there. And that means coaching staff, you know, defensive, off everybody, the whole coaching staff as a whole. So that's how I rate them. Then when I went down through it, didn't come out great, but I will give you some reasons why. So let's start at quarterback. Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence, one of the best matchups we've ever seen. That's not hyperbole. It's a great matchup. You know, these guys are wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about that. Real quick. Sorry about that, guys. Got some info coming in. Anyway, let's get back to it. So quarterbacks. So I gave you can see right now if you're watching, anybody that's listening, I gave the advantage to Clemson. I don't think there's any doubt that Trevor Lawrence is one of the best college quarterbacks we've ever seen, ever. He's one of the best college football prospects in general we've ever seen. Absolute number one pick in the NFL draft next year, assuming that team needs a quarterback, you know, but you guys get what I'm saying. So, you know, this year, you know, he sat out a couple games because of COVID. They actually lost a game. But when he's on the field, we've all seen what he's done. He's won, 3 playoff games. He's won a national championship. You know, he went toe-to-toe with LSU for a while. That game, it wasn't his fault they lost to LSU last year. So he's played 4 great playoff games and 4 chances. You know, he was the difference in the Ohio State game last year. Absolutely the difference. For right, wrong, or different, whatever he did, he got them the win. He was the difference. And so I gave them the advantage. Basically, what popped out this year is we've seen what Fields has done. He's a great quarterback, but this year hasn't. A lot of it's a 6-game schedule. We won't beat that into the ground anymore. We talked about it. We know that they're not this team isn't full steam ahead right now. But you know, the biggest thing I saw is he's got sacked 18 times. They've only played 6 games. That really jumped out to me. I understand that some of it's the O-line fault, but if anybody's watched, you know, Lawrence has held the ball a little bit. He's, you know, those sacks when he's scrambling, you know, I'm sure most of you know, but if you don't, if you're scrambling, running out of the pocket, even if you run out of bounds and lose yards, that's a sack. So some of those sacks are on a quarterback. You know, with that, when you don't throw the ball away and you're chased way out of there, you get way out of the pocket and you get tackled for a loss or you run out of bounds, that's a sack. So it's not always just getting blasted in the pocket. So the O-line gave up a few, but I think Fields is responsible for at least half of those. That really jumped out. Now he does have 274 yards rushing this year, which is a lot for 6 games. So I think that in a Clemson game, and you know, we're talking like this is it, do or die situation, his legs could really become important. He's actually a better all-out runner than Lawrence, even though Lawrence is a little more explosive, you know, out of the pocket. Lawrence does a lot of his running in the red zone. He's so effective. I mean, when he runs the RPO in the red zone, it is deadly. But I'd say from 20-yard line back, Fields is a better game changer as a runner. But I gave the nod to Lawrence, but they're both really good quarterbacks. Excited to see it. Receiving. So here's what jumped out to me. Initially, all year we've talked about Ohio State's had one of, if not the best receiving, you know, groups in America, talent-wise, and we went on and on and on. We're not wrong about that. But then, so I'm actually got a playoff team rating coming out for the website, Off the Ball website this week. So as I'm, you know, doing my research, I realized 74 of the receptions are Wilson and Olave. The third highest receiver as far as receptions on the team is Ruckert with 9. It jumps from Wilson and Olave, they've each got over 30. It jumps down to Ruckert with 9. That just blew me away. So this isn't a team that's we talked about the receiving core. The running backs aren't catching many. I think Sermon might have 8. The H backs, the tight ends, are all under 10 receptions. I don't care if it's 6 games or not. That's really, really low. So that scares that scares me. As good as Wilson and Olave are, man, you can't have a 2-team receiving core. So really jumped out. Then I looked at Clemson. Rodgers and Powell have 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns. They average 15 yards between them per reception. And then you got Travis Etienne, who's got 44 receptions and another 500 yards. So receiving core, checkmark Clemson. I mean, they spread the ball around. I know they had more games. Even if you cut these stats in half, what my point is, they spread the ball around. They bring their tight end into it. They actually use their tight ends, which is different than Ohio State. Keep in mind, I understand there's give and take here, and we're going to get to the rushing attack. But as far as the receiving core goes, Clemson spreads the ball out more. They have very, very talented outside receivers too. They could easily. Let's not act like they couldn't play for Ohio State. All their receivers could play for Ohio State. So, I gave the check mark to Clemson because what else am I supposed to do when you look at the numbers? It was tough. But so once again, check mark to the receiving core of Clemson. So let's move down to the rushing attack. So this is where it got a little better for Ohio State. Clearly the more effective running game this year. Sermon and Teague average between them 200 yards a game. The team averages 275 a game, which is crazy. That's crazy numbers in 6 games. If you're playing air, it's hard to get 270 yards a game. Yes, I am. I based everything on, numbers and stats. I react to some comments here, numbers and stats and everything. I promise I was unbiased as anybody can get, as much as I want Ohio State to win. So rushing attack, let's get back to it. So Teague, so basically Sermon, Teague, Fields, over 200 yards a game between them all. We talked about, Fields a little bit, as part of that running attack, which also means the offensive line's getting it done. Our receivers, downfield blocking, Ohio State receivers done a great job this year. You see like Jackson Enigma, that guy is always blocking his butt off. We talked about it. These guys aren't getting a lot of receptions, but they're still putting in the work downfield. The running game is, I think, legit. I don't think it's a fluke. I don't think they build up stats versus lesser opponents. I really think they got a really nice running game. Sermon and Teague are both, a little more of a physical back. You may not get that. You're not going to get the 75-yard breakaways like you did with Dobbins, but that's all right. You'll take 20 yards a carry. So, sorry, reading stats. Anybody watching audio or watching stats? I appreciate that. We'll show that real quick. Really appreciate this. Love the feedback. But let's talk about, Clemson's running attack is no joke. I mean, Travis Etienne is the best running back in the country. I don't care especially between, running and receiving. Now he has been held down a couple games. I won't pretend I can go back and watch that game film. It's really hard to get, especially all 22 college game film and stuff. But he's had some games where he got held down a little. I don't think it's his talent, but maybe it's an offensive line issue, but still was a nick. It was it's a nitpick. It's still 13 touchdowns. I mean, the guy, but what he does do is breakaway. He averages 5.6 yards a carry. So even the games what he's had, quote unquote, a bad game, the whole season, we're talking, I think they're, 11 games, 5.6 a carry, crazy, 13 touchdowns. Lawrence doesn't have the yards that Fields, does. But the guy can explode at any moment. So he's always a threat, which opens up everything else. It opens up the run pass option, or opens up just the running option. Really dangerous. I did give Ohio State the edge in this because I can't deny the amount that they've put up and how they've pushed teams around. But one thing I'll say about Clemson, 31 total rushing touchdowns this year. Now, I think Ohio State would have been close to that with a full season. So I'm not, it's not drastic, but man, that's 31 rushing touchdowns for a team. It's quite impressive, but check mark Ohio State. Pass defense. Yeah, we all know where this is going. I don't think it's any secret Ohio State fan. No, everybody knows where this check mark's going. But, I kind of look at pass defended. OSU had 23 passes defended in 6 games. That was pretty good. Now that can mean they get tested a lot and they come up big. That can mean, swatted down. Like, that can mean two things. It can mean you've done really good, or it can mean that they're not scared to throw at you, which is part of it. They, even Northwestern tested Seven Banks and Wade. So, is that they're being that teams aren't scared of them and take a chance? It's kind of a mixture of both. So you look at Clemson, only 33 passes defended, but does that mean they're not throwing at them? Because Clemson's a different animal. They confuse people. What they do with their safeties and linebackers and everything is really impressive. That was the difference in the Ohio State game last year, honestly, is that their confusion, their disguises. Venables, wonderful defensive coach. So, Ohio State has 6 interceptions. Not bad. Some of them really mattered. Some of them, yeah. In the Northwestern game, a couple of them really, really mattered. Clemson had 13 interceptions, but of course, in a full season, 13, that's good. Of course, they are going to. Ohio State allows, but here's where things start getting a little sideways. Ohio State allows 260 yards and 1.5 touchdowns plus 62% completion rate, as to where Clemson is under 200 yards passing and only 1 touchdown and 53% completion rate. So clearly Clemson is the better pass defense. And anybody that's watched these games, I don't even have to explain this any farther. Ohio State has some issues in pass defense, and that is a big problem come Friday. It's just the truth, guys. So let's move on to run defense. OSU 90. They only give up 96 yards a game, 3.4 average, pretty good. They're really good at the point of attack on their defensive line. We've talked about all year they don't have that edge rusher, but they're really good at the point of attack. They're pretty sure tackling group. Like the running backs don't break the tackles like I think maybe even a year ago. I think this group tackles a little better than a year ago, even though they don't have the talent on the edges like they had. But really, really nice job this year. Teams, and then a lot of teams get a lot of yards because, early in the season when you're scoring a lot and you're constantly giving the ball back, like teams can chalk up yardage. That's why I put the 3.4 yards average carry. Not bad in today's college football. Of course, then you move to Clemson. They give up 100 yards a game, roughly the same as Ohio State, only a 2.8 yard average. And they only give up 0.7 touchdowns a game. So they give up less than a rushing touchdown a game. That is hard to give up less than a rushing touchdown a game. It's frustrating, but it is what it is. Once again, and then Clemson's safeties and linebackers are phenomenal. They're just a little better than Ohio State's. I don't know what else to say. As far as just objectively looking, our linebackers are a really good run stopping group. That's their thing. But, part of run stopping is, getting through gaps and tackles behind the line of scrimmage, and Clemson excels at that. And we'll talk about why in a minute. So another check mark to Clemson on run D. I swear, I went through this objectively. This is just now that doesn't mean there's huge. Keep in mind, I'm just giving check marks here. Like we'll say receiving might be, 40, 60, you know what I mean? Like that check mark doesn't mean that it's a blind side. It's just, I got to find some way to do this, guys. So let's talk about the defensive front. I kind of went as a defensive front because, I don't want to separate just defensive linemen and linebackers and all that. We all know that if you got 7 men in the box, that's your defensive front. If your linebackers are dropping back and you're only rushing 3, then that's the defensive line that play. So just as a general rule, we're just going to go with defensive front. Ohio State's not bad. 17 sacks total. That's not bad for 6 games. But now Togi has a leader with 3. We're talking interior lineman as the leader with 3. That's great for your interior line, but we don't have the edge rusher. We don't have a way to push quarterbacks out of the pocket. It's a little scary, but that doesn't mean our defensive line's bad. It's just they're not a pass rushing group, so to speak, a specialty. Haskell Garrett's had a great year, 4 tackles for loss, but he's disrupted a lot of teams, and that's going to be huge. Like you're going to need him in the backfield. You're going to need him to get to know Trevor Lawrence very, very well, to have a chance Friday. Okay, so here we go. We got to move on to Clemson defensive line. Man, I tell you what, they've really put something together down there. They got 7 guys with over 3 sacks. Keep in mind, our sack leader's 3. They got 3 sacks. They got 7 guys with 3+ sacks. They got 44 total sacks on the year, which that's pretty impressive. Almost 3 a game, or over 3 a game. Negative 296 sack yards. That's huge. I mean, that's impact plays. That means you're getting to the quarterback way behind the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean? Really, really, and that's how you're going to get the ball back on downs and all that. Really causing a lot of trouble. Tackles for loss. This is where they excel more than any. I think more than anybody in the country. I think this is the best defensive line in the country. When they got 8 players with 5 tackles for loss, and I was generous with that. It's their tackles for loss down the board on their team. It's the vast majority of their defense has a tackle for loss because they do run disguises so well. They do penetrate so well. Venables is not afraid to attack, blitz in any situation. Their tackles for loss are off the charts. Their negative yards are off the charts. I mean, really a phenomenal group. I don't have an answer. I wish I had an answer for how you attack that group. We saw it versus Notre Dame. They didn't have an answer, and that's a great offensive line. So very scary. Like their defensive line, both these defensive lines are good, but Clemson, and they've got the rotation. They're deep. They're rotating 6, 7 guys in there. I mean, they got freshmen that are as good as anybody in the country. Really, really impressive once you start looking at it and watching some of the plays back. But so check mark Clemson, defensive line, check mark Clemson. I hope nobody's mad at me for this. It doesn't mean I'm not rooting for the Buckeyes. I'm just giving you information. I could be totally wrong about all this. Let's be real. So, that was a tough one there, man. I thought it was going to be closer than it was, but whew, man, they got some real monsters on the defensive line. Coaching. I mean, Dabo's clearly the edge. He's won a couple national championships. He's won playoff games. His coaching staff is great. Not that Ohio State's is bad, but there's just the proof is there. The team is there. They've really excelled in giant games. Whatever you think of the dude personally, I'm sure Clemson fans love him. Everybody else in the country seems to dislike him. I don't factor that in here. It's how's his team built, even if he's done the recruiting, let's Venables however you want to divide it up. Their coaching staff's done a great job. Position top to bottom, this team is solid. They don't have glaring weaknesses at any position. They've recruited well. I mean, and like I say, Dabo's done it. Day's a really, really good coach, really successful coach so far. But he is nowhere on the plane of Dabo. That doesn't mean that can't change in one game. That changes in one game this week. But as of now, what else can I say, guys? So overall, Clemson obviously, has the edge. If we want to talk for a second how Ohio State can win, this is just my personal. I think you got 2 choices. I think you can say, screw it, and just air it out, put pressure on the secondary, try to get your pass interferences, hope Olave and Wilson make great catches, runs after the catch, things like that. I think that's one way to just like kind of like a little bit like we did with Cardale Jones when he had to take over for Barrett in 15. Like what they think you're going to do is run Ezekiel Elliott every play, air it out, throw bombs. That can, because that's when you're taking the least amount of talent against each other. Now you're at wide receiver versus defensive back, and you've given yourself, a one-on-one challenge, as opposed to what we'll talk about next is if you go for a running ball or try to grind it out. Now you're factoring in 7 players versus 8 or 9 players, and now you're bringing different things into it. Now, personally, I think the best chance is to really, 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 really focus on the run game. You're going to have to use play action passing. You're going to have to use a lot of option. You're going to have to use a ton of RPO. More like, if we want to think back to like a JT Barrett, Terrell Pryor kind of offense, to where I think Fields' legs have to be a threat every play, or this game is going to go sideways quick. I think if they try to drop him back and play like they've been playing, like, we even saw Northwestern shut it down, I think it's big trouble. Me personally, because I think they'll come after him. I think they'll get to him. I think we'll always be behind the sticks. And then once you get to 2nd and 15, Clemson's going to pounce. I really do. And then when you turn the ball over, even if you can hold them back, we know that Lawrence and Etienne are going to score. Like, we absolutely know we're going to score. We're not going to keep them from scoring. There's just no way. So I really think that, Ohio State has to come into it with a ground and pound mentality, really factor Fields into the running game. Everything's got to be quick and faster than it has, or that defensive line's going to eat lunch down there in Louisiana. So that's my opinion. I think you focus on the running game, run a ton of option. You're going to be in 3rd and 5s and stuff a lot. You're probably going to have to go for it on, several 4th downs, honestly, to keep the chains moving. But you're eating clock, and then you've brought mistakes. Like, if it works, like say the Northwestern game, and you can get Sermon or Teague or Fields or whoever in the end zone, or quick passes, however you want to get there, and it takes you 6 minutes to get there. Well, then you've brought a helmet on a ball into play. If Clemson can turn the ball over, and you can do that again, now we'll say you've ate 11 minutes off the clock, and you get 10 points out of it. Then you can. You've got something manageable. I think if you come out and play the exact same way that they've played all season, I think it plays into. I think it really, this is one of the worst matchups that Ohio State could have had. I think it plays perfect. I would honestly, Alabama's a better matchup because Mac Jones doesn't run the ball. Like, we know where Mac Jones is going to be. Notre Dame knows where Mac Jones is going to be. He's going to be 5 yards behind the center. If you can get there, he's there. Not Lawrence. It's crazy. You saw what he did against Notre Dame, man. When he's got it going, he's got it going. Yes, I think Ohio State has to run the ball successfully. That's it. Yeah, or else is a good. I totally agree. I totally agree with that assessment. It's an uphill battle for Ohio State, but I mean, we all know turnovers, injuries, not either side of the ball. I mean, anything can change a game. It's not hopeless. No, there's a reason they're in there. Ohio State has a ton of really good athletes. I just, with the short year, some, especially Dabo thinks it's an advantage. It is or it isn't. The team never got to gel. I don't even really think we know who, is going to play safety. I don't think, maybe Hilliard, maybe that's a key. Maybe we discovered something in the Big Ten championship game where he's a factor. But, it's a lot of this is on Fields' shoulders. That's just the way it is in big time college football. How does he respond? If either team, much like Clemson last year, if Ohio State gets down 17 points, we know in college football, you only need 5 minutes to come back from that. Can they muster up, the guts to do it? We really don't know because this year has been so funky. But, we can hope so. So, that's it, guys. Obviously, I think, my professional opinion is I think Clemson wins the game. That doesn't mean I'm not rooting for the Buckeyes. I will be as sick to my stomach as always, hoping they win. I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm excited for the Notre Dame-Alabama game. So regardless, I'll either be, exuberant to see you guys next Sunday, or, I will personally have to muster up the personal intestinal fortitude, or as Desmond Howard would say, testicular fortitude to make it here and do this show. So that's it. I appreciate everybody that's listened. Appreciate everybody that's watched. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big, that's a good point there. Talent helps, and that's a real thing. Yeah, I'm not giving up on them, but just objectively, I don't think it's that close. But hey, I love being wrong this time. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Check out Jeff Needs Sports. I got a lot of stuff coming for 2021. Some big things. And go to the Off Ball Network. Check out everybody. Check out some of the cool articles we're writing, rankings, and things like that we've got going on. Have a happy new year. Try to enjoy your week. Try to enjoy the football. Always remember it feels like it, but it's not the end of the world. Either side, Clemson or Ohio State, it's not the end of the world. It just feels like it for a few minutes, maybe a few days or so. But you guys are awesome. And I appreciate you all. Have a great week. Be kind and go Bucks.